Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Lately I've been showing you instruments and I have some more today to show you. Now I have this as a special kind of review because there are certain instruments that I keep to one side because they're very good about teaching something. So I use certain instruments to teach certain things, and so what you're seeing today is a group of instruments that I use a lot. So you've seen them before. This isn't the first time, and I use them because they're very good at teaching a specific thing. You know, the best learning is hands-on, I think, where you could actually see what's being done. Sometimes I have to use pictures, sometimes I have to use other ways in order to teach you because you're not sitting here beside me. But there are some instruments that make learning a lot clearer, and those instruments I've set to one side, and those are the instruments you'll be seeing here. Now, of course, you've seen them before, so these are not instruments that you're completely unfamiliar with, but I'll show you why I use them and what they teach and why I have them set aside. So I have actually quite a few, or I have unusual instruments, but most of them you have seen before. So I'm going to start out with why I use what instruments. Now, I have two, and you've seen these before. I have two instruments here that look exactly alike, and they may even be made from the same company, and they're made, I believe, in South Korea. This one is called an Angel Star, and it is made in South Korea. This one is an LMI, and the LMI is a student model instrument that I buy in this country, but there is a big company, LMI, and I buy some of them there. They're a student model, but they play very, very well, and this also is a student model, and it plays very, very well. If you were to look at them together, the only difference you'd be able to see would be in the foot joint, where the star one that comes from Korea has this little plastic thing around the foot joint, and it's also on the underneath. So that is covered with a clear plastic. This is not. But other than that, they look exactly alike. I can see a little difference in some ridge work around here, but I don't even think that's going to show up on television. So those two, alike and different. There are so many of these instruments that are alike, but they're a little bit different. And as I say, I think some of the LMIs are made in South Korea as well as the Angel Star. But this is the Angel Star, and this is the LMI, and they look so much alike, and they play alike, but the only difference is in the little design in the foot and a little bit of bridge work that's right here, which probably doesn't show up. I don't think I'll be able to let it show up. So that's those two. There are two that I use. These two here that I use to show the differences between the different joints, the head joint, the body, and the foot joint, because it's so easy to pull them apart. And let me just put this down here for a sec. Okay, so here is an instrument. It was made on the out of country, but look at this. The head joint is off. That's the head joint, including this colored area. This is the foot joint, including this colored area, and this is just the plain tube. But it's easy for me to pull it apart and show you that, and it's easier for you to understand it than for me to use a diagram and say from here to here is the foot joint, and from here to here is the head joint, and this is the body. Most of the recorders come apart in these three areas. You have the head joint, you have the body, and you have the foot joint. Not all of them do, however. Most of them do. The better ones do. So all I have to do is to gently put it back together again. Now, the reason I say gently is I've seen students try to get instruments together by whacking them together. And sometimes their aim is pretty good, but if their aim is not so good and they happen to do it wrong, then you can actually bend an instrument. You can actually bend the the apparatus, and some instruments are more you know, touchy than others. The clarinets are more complicated than others. But the first thing you would teach a student is how to pick it up and how to put it together gently. If you bang it together, and then you see you have to make sure that it's all aligned. So I would put the head joint in the position where, because I have to look at this to do this, where the labium and the mouthpiece are right above the tone holes. Another thing I like about this is the color is light enough so you can see the tone holes, and in the back you can see the thumb hole, which is really another tone hole. But you get it all lined up, and of course then it's easy for your fingers to find where to go. So this I use. Now the other one that I used for the same purpose. This one here is actually a Junior Stansby, and this was made in Japan. But you can easily see the head joint, including this white area, which the lighter plastic is, and the foot joint starting with this, where this other area of the light plastic is. And of course it also has the bottom of the foot joint covered in a lighter plastic. And one thing I do like about it is the tone hole in the back. Most of the time, the tone hole in the back, which is the thumb hole, isn't covered by any kind of lighter colored plastic. It's just a hole, and you feel around and you find it. For new students, it's good that they are able to look at that and see exactly where it is. And if you look at it, you can't see this possibly, but my finger is on this, which would be a B if I was fingering it to play it, and the thumb hole is right on the opposite side of it. They're really pretty much just opposite each other. So this is another really nice little instrument that I can use, made in Japan, that shows the same kind of thing about where the joints are. These two also. Now, I've had these in before. Here's the red one, and here's the blue one. Whoops. It may look purple on the set, but it's a red and blue. They're both put out by the same company, and you can see, and I'm going to do it to the blue one. I won't, because they're both the same anyway. You can take off the foot joint. You can take off the head joint, and you can see that the body is just a clear tube, nothing else. Everything, all the apparatus in terms of playing the instrument is in the head joint, right around this area here. So this is another way of my teaching where the joints are, and then I can just easily put it back on. But you have to be careful of these instruments. Even though this is plastic, it is possible to damage it if you don't do it right. Now see, now I have to just align it. And when I align it, make sure that the labium, which is going to be hard for you to see because it's dark, but the labium right here and the mouthpiece up here is perfectly aligned with the tone holes right here. But you can see this is basically a tube. Even the foot joint has nothing in it. I mean, basically it's a tube. It's been colored differently, and it's easier for you to see that. Now, most instruments do come apart in these three places, but this one doesn't, and it's speckled. It's one instrument, just one solid build instrument, one solid tube. It is designed so that it looks like it has a separate foot joint, but it doesn't. Or it has a separate head joint, but it doesn't. And I have a number of these that are speckled, but this is very interesting because some of them you can take one part off, but not another part. The best ones you can take both parts off. Why would you want to do that? Well, for cleaning purposes, basically, and I can show you that a little later as we have time. How do you clean it? How do you take care of it? But it's a beautiful instrument, and it does play. And I love the color. Now I have other instruments here just to show you what they can teach. There are some instruments that are just straight. This green one and this yellow one. I believe that they were made by the same company. They look exactly alike except for the color. And, but there's no brand name on them. It wasn't made by Casio or Yamaha. There's no name as to where they came from, as to who made them. But I noticed that they both have some things in common. They have an off-white mouthpiece, and that's unusual. Usually they're pure white, not that makes any difference. And in the back of them, they have two places, maybe the yellow one will show it more clearly, where you put your thumbs. Now, you know, in an instrument, your left hand goes on top, and there's a little place here. It just protrudes a little bit. That shows you that that's where your thumb goes, and your finger's right here. And then there's another similar device, just a little outcropping, you might say, to put your right thumb on. So you can't make a mistake as to where your thumbs go. Most instruments don't have that. And there is a little bit of a raising of the tone holes, which is very good for beginning students because it's a lot easier to find where your fingers go. Left hand on top, B-A-G, F-E-D. There's no place for a C, however. There would be, if it were a more expensive instrument, a little hole down here to put the little finger when you want to play a low C. That doesn't exist. So basically, and there's no tone hole in the back either. It's basically a step above a toy, but not much. B-A-G-F-E-D. You can play part of a scale with it, and you have the proper hand positions. But it is interesting. Kids love them. They love the colors. So I wanted to show you those, both from the same company. Now, I did want to show you these two instruments. I'll take these next. This is a gill. It is an Israeli instrument. This is a gill. It is an Israeli instrument. The difference between them is this. They're both Israeli instruments. I don't know where the company has its headquarters. I don't know if it's an Israeli company or not. But this guy was made out of cedar, and it has a plastic head joint, and the rest is just the cedar. I mean, you can't pull out a foot joint. It doesn't exist. It's all together as one. So you can take the head joint off, but you can't take anything else off. And it had a beautiful fragrance. It's natural wood, and it's made in Israel, and it had a fragrance. You could smell the cedar when I first got it. I can't anymore because I've had it long enough that the smell is gone. But it's a very nice instrument. It plays very beautifully. This one, I'm not sure. I think it may be the same kind of wood that's been stained. It looks a lot darker. But you notice that it's just one. And here again, you can take the head joint off. I won't do it, but you can. But you can't take any foot joint off. So you don't have to, there's not that much that you can deal with here. And you notice, and this is important too, you notice that there are two sets of double holes, and I'm going to be showing you this repeatedly. Two sets of double holes, one where my finger is right here, and the other also. How come? You will have a larger hole to the right and a smaller hole to the left in each case. Now, on this case, you see, if I use my usual fingering, B-A-G-F-E, that D is going to be on one of those two holes, that set of two holes, and the C is going to be just below it on the foot joint, and that's where it would be, and that's where it is, and I'll show you, I think, on another instrument I have here. It doesn't make any difference. You can play just as much whether there are double holes or whether there are not double holes, or there might be just a single hole, or one set of double holes and a single hole. It doesn't make any difference. The purpose of those holes is to help you play accidentals, especially the sharps. D sharp, pull it off, so you only have one hole covered instead of two. A plain D, just hold it over the whole thing. The same with the C. C sharp, pull the finger out so one hole is exposed, but the other hole is covered. If you want a regular low C, cover them both. So it does help in the playing of accidentals. But even if you don't have those double holes, you can still play those accidentals anyway, because you can always half hold something. To half hold something, you take your finger and you just pull it off, and half of the hole is covered and half of the hole is not covered. And so you can see it like that. But I wanted to show that to you. And it's the same with this. The same with this. You have a double hole on both the D and also the lower note, which would be the C. So these are fairly modern instruments, and it just helps me to show you things. What I'm showing is the instruments that I use to teach. Now, I told you before, this is a fife. It's a water pipe. And all it has for a mouthpiece is a hole. You blow across it a little bit like a Coke bottle. There are no tone holes in the back. It's just plain water pipe. Now, and I said, and this is also a fife. Right here is the hole. You blow across it. This was made in America. It was bought in Massachusetts, actually. And what's the difference between the fife and the flute? Well, a flute, I mean, there are some more, this is just a basic difference. The flute will have what's known as a lip plate. And if you can see this is kind of fake, but I brought it in because I had so much to carry, I couldn't bring in a regular flute. But this has a lip plate. And if I turn it around, it's right here. You can see there would be a little place now. It looks black on the monitor, so I don't know. But anyway, it is right here. Here's the hole right here where I have my finger, and around it is a little, looks like it's a little elevated area, and that little elevated area, it would be a lip plate. Now, on a regular flute, it would be designed so that it would be sticking up, so it would be easy to see. You know, it's interesting when you get light on a silver instrument, how the instrument reflects and it looks like it's gray, or it looks sometimes like it's black. This is a silver instrument, and if I get the light on it just right, it looks like it's gray. I had somebody, I had done a flute solo, and he said, "You did so well playing your little black flute." I didn't know what he was talking about, but then when I watched later in the pictures, then I could see it did look that way. It's just the way that the light reflects off from it. But that lip plate is right here. It's a little round area, and it is around the tone hole for the mouthpiece, and it just circles it. And if it were a regular, I was hoping it would show up a little better. But if I brought in a whole flute, you'd be able to see that it would be raised up. You put it under your chin, just like you do if you're playing a fife, but you just blow across it. But that mouthpiece would be elevated, and it's so designed so that it looks like a lip plate. And that's why I brought it in. I can see a little bit of it, but I can't see too much of it. The only way for me to do it, I guess, is to bring in the flute and show you. I have a few flutes as well. Okay, so I wanted to show you that. Now, let's see. I showed you the fifes. Let me see now I want to show you the melody and the pearl pipers. Here is a melody flute. The brand name is Melody, and it's like a bright pink. They don't play too well, but I paid about $1 for them. But they're good in a way. They have a little place for your thumbs to go, for your left thumb on top, for your right thumb on the bottom, and they are raised a little bit. and it's called Melody. Yeah, that's what the brand name is. And so you can get your hands in the right position. It does play some, but I want to show you the variety of the colors because it's possible in this day and age to have instruments about all kinds of colors. I understand that they have such a thing as a red clarinet. I've never seen one, but different colors. Here's one is a melody, and here's one, it's also a melody. The bright pink, it's a melody. Actually, I've got two of them. This blue is a melody. I like the shade of that. This green is a melody flute. And the pink I've already showed you. Now, here is a melody, and here is a pearl piper. They look exactly alike. They're both orange. I had them on the last show that I did. They're exactly alike in the back, too. A place to put your right thumb and a place to put your left thumb. And the difference is this is a melody and it's orange. This is a pearl piper and it's orange. The difference when you play them is astounding. But if you look at them, they look exactly alike. Now what I want to show you is that this melody doesn't play very well. It's like the other colors that I showed you, brilliant in color, but not so brilliant in the way that it plays. But this is a pearl piper. I've done solos on it. Now you'd think they'd play alike. There's not that much difference in the way they're constructed, but there is some difference in the way they're constructed because one plays well and one doesn't. But they look exactly alike. And then you have the Dixie, which I brought in before. And this shows that the tone holes are quite a bit raised. And that's good because it teaches children how to put their fingers. You know, when you get used to playing, you don't even think about where to put your fingers. You pick up your instrument and without looking, there it is. But when you're a beginning student, you have to kind of look, is this the place where it's supposed to be? Is this the place where it's supposed to be? And as a result of that, you get a lot of students fumbling around, and it's very, very easy to drop an instrument. So when you first start to teach a child how to play, you show them how to pick it up, where to put their fingers. They watch you, they play the fingers, then I have them fool around with their fingers a little bit. Like, can you kind of learn just by doing it, by watching me and not watching your own fingers, where to put your fingers, because it's important. Now, I think it's probably a lot more complicated on a piano or a guitar, but when you get a woodwind instrument, then you can figure out, and you can feel it. On a regular instrument, you can actually feel it. You can feel the indentations. Now, this is a magic flute. It's put out by First Note. This is also a magic flute put out by First Note. They're not really toys. This is more like a toy than the actual recorder that they make. They make really quite good recorders and they play quite well. So I'll put the blue one down. It's just a straight cylindrical tube, and there's no taking anything off. And as you learn how to play, you learn just by feel. And I'm looking at the monitor just to see what you're seeing. But you know, I don't have to look at my fingers to see where they go. You can feel the little indentations because you can feel the holes. But when you're a beginning student, you may not be able to figure that out, or it will be confusing because they all look alike. You'll notice on this that all of the tone holes are the same size, and that's unusual because your fingers aren't the same size. So what most instruments do is they make an accommodation for your fingers. I see one that's smaller than the other, but most of them have different sizes of holes, tone holes, to accommodate the different size of your fingers. And that's true for most of the instruments. Now, this is an Asian instrument, and it shows clearly where the joints are. I haven't pulled it apart. It plays quite well, but it's an Asian instrument. and I can't read the case. I mean, I can't read foreign languages, but the case has all of the language on it that you would need, and if you could read the language, you would know, of course, what it says. But it's a fairly reasonable case. The best cases are hard cases, but you don't often get them. They cheapen things as they go. This is a first note. The first note, this is a black recorder. I bring it in because it's very unusual to see a black recorder. This is a totally black recorder. It is the same company that puts out the Magic Flute, but they have them in different colors, and and they're really quite good instruments. The first notes are quite good instruments. Here's one, just a dark green, and it has no brand name on it. I have no idea who made it, where it was made from, but it plays fairly well. I'll use any instrument I can to teach whatever I need to teach. Let's see, what do I need to teach you now? I brought this in before. Whoops, I've got 1 minute left, so I'm going to close it with this, and I'll finish with it in the next segment. It won't take me too long to do it, but this is a real Indian flute from the country of India, made of bamboo, plays really well. It has a nice little design on it, although that may not show up too well on television, but there's a design around this area, and the foot joint, and it has a little red area right here. So I'm going to close it here, and we're going to close it, and I'll continue with this next time. So please join me then.